welcome to Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and tonight I'm joined by Lawrence Connolly. We are going to be talking about Alloa Athletic 1, Celtic 2. Lawrence, second half performance, not as good as the first. What's your thoughts overall?
I'd maybe give, Jota and Maeda pass marks. I think we're struggling after that. Slow, pedestrian, lacked a bit of fight. I know we had 3 injuries, but Giakoumakis, I don't think he can lead the line for us. He just doesn't show enough. I mean, near the end there was an occasion he got the ball in the right, and you're thinking, just take it for a run, take the pressure off of us. And he decided to turn back with the ball and put us under pressure, play it backwards. Beaton got it right at the end, and he went for a run with it. And you're going, that's what you need. You need somebody just to take ownership.
Yeah.
Giakoumakis wasn't taking ownership, mate, when he got that ball at his back. He had a couple of chances, defenders sliding in and blocking him, but I think he was too slow to them. He's got to lift the ball, because the defender can only slide along the deck, at that point, and you're thinking, just lift it, and it's in the back of the net. So really disappointed in Giakoumakis' performance.
Well, yeah, you brought him up, so let's start off the conversation with Giakoumakis. He opens the scoring tonight. Good finish, gave him credit for that at half-time, very good finish. Good timing for the goal as well, settles the nerves, a difficult, potentially a banana skin kind of game for Celtic tonight. So he opens the scoring. We said before the game it's going to be great to see him getting some game time, minutes in the legs, all of this kind of stuff. But by the end of the night, I'm looking at that performance as a whole, and I totally agree with you. I don't think he can lead the line. I think that time and time again, he lost the ball. His first touch often bounces off him. I mean, there was a moment near the end of the game where the balls came to his head and he's just headed it into no man's land. My head is standing 5-6 yards away from him, Lawrence. I'm concerned about Giakoumakis, because what you want that strength and depth within your squad. And I think that once we go from Kyogo Maeda, then your centre forward, the drop in quality is vast. From that down to Giakoumakis stroke Ajeti. And that's a bit of a concern, because, we're in a scenario now where tonight, if ever we were needed reminding, one game can completely scupper your plans. 3 injuries tonight. Don't know how serious any of the 3 of them are, Lawrence, but before you know it, you are then starting to, be forced to play guys like Giakoumakis. And from what I saw tonight and from what I've seen since he came to Celtic, I am not convinced.
I'd be playing Dawson in front of him, from what I've seen of Dawson. And I think you're right. It's the second touch is a tackle with him. Mm-hmm. Often, isn't it? I mean, that one, he could have just a cushion to head at Maeda. He just needs to be aware he's there. There's another one he tried to cushion on his thigh. The ball ends up running away 4 yards from him.
And this is a player, again, right, before anyone thinks it's going to be an anti-Giakoumakis show, it's not. This is a player that we were praising as much as we possibly could, to the point where I'm saying, he held the ball up a few times pretty well in Europe, and you laughed at me for that. But you're looking for the positives. In that second half, there were no positives, I'm afraid, from Giakoumakis. He lost the ball, poor ball to Rogic at one point. When Rogic's running at full pace, all he has to do is play the ball in front of him, and it opens up the Alloa defence. He's played it behind him. I think there's been a couple of chances you should have done better with. The one near the end of the game where the defender's getting a lot of credit for blocking it. I don't think it was a good enough effort by Giakoumakis.
Look at it. It was a poor cross, but it hung in the air for ages. Giakoumakis could have followed in and challenged, but he didn't. He waited for the ball to come in off the left to follow in and challenge, and you're going, well, you're leading the line. We expect you to be a wee bit better in there. And
the header from Skills' cross, very good cross from Skills. So, unfortunately, I don't think he has shown enough this evening. We're going to run through the performance as a whole. Chancellor comes in to make a comment on the YouTube channel. McCarthy is the only one willing to give a bit back. Well, what I would say on that point is there are players in this squad who are fringe players who we've spoken about throughout the month of January, Lawrence, that we would rather see move on because they're not contributing. They're not contributing to Celtic in any way, shape or form. You want them off the wage bill, move on. And we know that if you maybe move 4 on, you're only going to get another 2 in before the end of the transfer window, if you're lucky. But I'll tell you, on tonight's performance, and you can't just base it on this. So I'm going to look at, let's say, the St Johnstone game on Boxing Day as well. But overall, I think that McCarthy is going to contribute more to the Celtic side, based on what I've seen, than Giakoumakis is. And we've already said McCarthy's probably, third or fourth choice in his position. However, I think tonight, and I know that we're playing opposition that's lower league, we have seen this a couple of times this season from McCarthy. He's only played 3 times for 90 minutes. He's come on as an emergency tonight after McGregor's injury. I get all that. But at least he is contributing, and I think that he did contribute tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was unlucky to get booked because the boy had a similar tackle on Jota, didn't get a yellow card. Both of them are just taking the player, coming from behind, and it's... McCarthy's a seasoned pro. He's great backup to have, isn't he? He certainly, I thought he performed better as defensive midfielder than Gucci had in the first half. So it's good to have him. Beaton, I thought, done okay when he came on. He held the ball well at the end when we were under a bit of pressure. But all in all, you've lost 3 players to injury. I think Gucci's looked bad the way it was packed at the end. I don't know how bad it was if he's walking off, and Callum, is it a cheap bone or a jaw? Hopefully he's going to be okay. But we're in the next round of the Cup. I suppose that's what you want at the beginning of the night. But we're also, I think we're excited to see hopefully some good performances. And I thought Maeda was good, really unlucky with that header. I thought it was a cracking header from him. Yeah. He made a good save.
He worked really well all night. He worked hard all night, Maeda. And, on any other night, he might have got a goal or 2. This is the thing I'm taking into account, is the fact Celtic did create a lot of chances that, we just weren't decisive enough really at the last moment. And when your spearhead is Giakoumakis and he doesn't seem to be on it, then that figures. But I think the injuries did play a massive part tonight, Lawrence, because you're having to change your personnel, sometimes even your shape, when you're forced to make these changes as well. So I'm taking all of that into account. But the most important thing is we're in the next round. We spoke at the beginning of the game about some of these ties that, you really should be beating certain teams. It doesn't happen. And some of the games we mentioned was Morton in the League Cup, Clyde's in the Scottish Cup, Inverness Cali that, seen John Barnes lose his job. But there was another one in the second half that came to my mind. And you'll remember at Arbroath, where we've drawn 1-1 with them at home. And it's not the team that Arbroath are nowadays, by the way. And we went away from home and beat them 1-0. And it was Adam Matthews' winner, I think it was. So these games can be difficult. I also remember Alloa coming to Celtic Park under Brendan Rodgers. I think the final score was 2-0, and it took us a wee while to break them down. Craig Gordon almost got sent off for a tackle on Greg Spence that night. So, I take all that into consideration. It's difficult. It can be even more difficult going onto the plastic pitch. But it was a poor performance tonight overall, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was scrappy, pedestrian. A lot of chances missed. Done some more, I think, than Giakoumakis. I think we wanted him to convince us. Unfortunately, I think he's convinced us that the other way. We wanted to convince us that he was an option.
Yeah,
and I think he's convinced that he's probably not.
The thing with Giakoumakis, when you think about the fact that, and much has been made of the fact, and rightly so, top goal scorer in the top division in the Netherlands, and he's done that whilst playing for that poor side that were relegated. We then hear that the team were looking for €12 million for him had they stayed in the division. And we've got him for under £3 million. And, you look at the goals and the show reels and everything else, and you think, well, maybe he's not going to be the first pick, especially when you bring in Kyogo and he hits the ground running. But you want him to contribute. This is what I keep coming back to. And the guys that aren't contributing in our team that I've named, that I would like to see leave in January, are Barkas, Ayeti, Soro, and Bolingoli. I think those 4 guys could leave and it would make no difference to Celtic at this moment in time. You can then obviously bring in a couple of other bodies and strengthen the squad. Giakoumakis, on tonight's performance and from what I've seen, I'm totally unconvinced that he's even a second or third choice striker at this stage. But you're in a difficult scenario then, if that is the case, because, very quickly last season we realised the same about players like Shane Duffy, Ayeti, Barkas. But if you've got a guy in permanently, there's not a great deal you can do about it, is there?
No, not a lot. He taken his goal well, but I think it's probably skills his crosses that's made it. But it's still a good finish, but outside of that, his movement was poor. His control was poor, and he had other opportunities to finish. The header, a couple of cutbacks. It's not what you'd expect for someone that's kind came from the Dutch league as top scorer. But if you look at the length of his career, he's only had that one good season, hasn't he? It doesn't look like he's done it consistently over a number of seasons. So, yeah, he's looking. He's not going to trouble Maeda or Kyogo when they're fit, is he? He's not going to trouble them for a place in the team.
I try and offer as much of a balanced view as possible. Anyone wearing the hoops, I try my best not to be going studs up on them. But do I say, well, Giakoumakis, he's not had a great start in terms of his fitness. He's trying to get some kind of match fitness. In the first half, he scores a very good goal. It was a good finish. And in the second half, he's tiring. I mean, is that the fairest I can possibly say? Or some of the things you've mentioned, the fundamentals of, holding a line, first touch, laying the ball off, and when you get a chance, being decisive with your finish. Are these things not down to your fitness, not down to your match sharpness?
He didn't seem to be moving about too much there. I don't think he was, with the effort he put in, I don't think he'd been knackered at the end of that 93 minutes. I just think it was poor. I mean, if he's training hard, there was a few occasions the ball was bouncing 4 or 5 yards away from him and he's trying to control it, and it is just really poor. I mean, other players had poor games, but I think he just really stood out because he had a few chances. That header he's got to do. It's a free header. He's
got to do better than he did. I mean, another good ball in from Scales. You weren't convinced with Scales at left back tonight, though, were you?
No, I think a lot of times he was caught out of position. You were looking up near the end. It was Jota that was tracking the ball. Where they got the goal from, that we said when the subs are on, the instruction will be for them to run at the defence. Sure enough, I think it was the 10 picks the ball up, runs, then it gets walked out to the right, and you're going, well, why is this coming in so easily from there? So, a couple of good crosses in from Scales, but defensively, I think Alloa were getting more joy down the right than they were down the left. So, I don't think they got that kind of space if Taylor had been played.
I'm sitting here in a kind of state of mind or a frame of mind of you get the result, you get out of Dodge, you're in the hat for the next round. But we always do analyse the performance. But the big thing for me is the 3 injuries. Yeah, it was a poor performance. Yes, I've got doubts about Giakoumakis now. Probably had some niggling doubts beforehand, but they're bigger now, even though he scored a decent goal. But I'm more concerned about the injuries over everything else. And I'm thinking about the game against Hearts coming up. And, Abada and Kyle McGregor and Gucci. So I think to myself, well, if all three, if it's a worst case scenario, Lawrence, and all 3 of them are out, then let's have a think about how we reshape the side to go in against Hearts. And let me know your thoughts in the comments section. You are tuning in on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and also on Twitter. And Ewan Boy Martin reckons that was the worst performance we've seen under Ange Postecoglou. Lane R comes in to say Hart is awful with the ball at his feet. I think Joe Hart tonight, there were a few occasions where he probably shouldn't have got the ball back. And one of them was Tony Ralston. One of them came down again to Giakoumakis, just dithering with the ball. He should have gone up the right wing. He's turned round. It's ended up putting Joe Hart under pressure. And I think when he came in, he was pretty honest about his reservations initially when Guardiola started playing, a game that required a goalkeeper to be involved in starting attacks from the back. But then he adapted to it. There's been a few moments, hearts and mouth moments, as I've been calling them this season. And you've got to say, once it goes to 2-1, you're just hoping that, you don't put Hart under pressure. Because I think he's had one of the biggest impacts of anyone this season, Lawrence. But I don't like to see our defenders putting him under pressure like that. But tonight he was at least in my worries tonight, Joe Hart. I've got to say, I mean, he definitely is the vice captain, even though I think officially it's Jamesy Forrest. Let me know your thoughts. Who do we replace them with, if indeed they are injured, or if we are on live and you get an update from the post-match from Ange about the injuries to Abada, Callum McGregor, and also to Gucci, then update us, because often we will not be aware of that because we're concentrating on the stream itself. I think if I'm looking at Abada, if Abada's out, Lawrence, I would be delighted with the fact that Jota came back in tonight, because he would just, he would slip right back into the side before us going out right. How impressed were you with Jota? He was on the field less than 60 seconds and he was almost taken out.
Yeah, it was a poor tackle. let it go without a card. Probably set a tone for a few tackles after it, but what a ball in for Maeda's header, and there was it showed he's got a work rate, showed a few tricks, kept the ball alive down the left, created another chance for Maeda, but the 10-some finish, wouldn't it, because of a really narrow angle. But yeah, it was as if he'd never been away, didn't look rusty at all. So yeah, I think he's going to slot straight back in the starting 11. But I think it's been great since he came to the club, so it's no surprise, is it, that he's back in and he's performing. And let's be honest, we're playing Alloa. Jota should be, our wingers should look good against that.
Well, you say that, but we're playing Alloa and Giakoumakis didn't look that good. That's my big concern, Lawrence. If you're going to give someone a 90-minute chance to get the minutes in their legs and shows what they can do, and you're doing it against a side that is of a lesser standard than you're used to in the league, that is the game that you're looking at Giakoumakis to show us what he can do, and he didn't. By the way, you don't see the screen when we're doing these things, Lawrence, but Celtic have been drawn at home to Wraith Rovers in the next round. So we've got Wraith Rovers in the next rounds, Championship club, and we've had history with Wraith Rovers in cup competitions in the past. But Paul Campbell came in to tell us that, so thanks very much, Paul. When again we're looking at Jota, there's a lot of news this week surrounding the deal. Bringing Jota in permanently. Is he going back to Benfica? Where are we with this, Lawrence? Because I think I'm the same as every other Celtic fan. I would pay the money right now, get him in permanently if we could.
Yeah, if we've got the money to do the deal, just get it done. I don't think, we're halfway through a season. I think we've seen enough to judge them that he's worth the investment, isn't it? To bring in, if the money's there to spend on.
You've got to. I mean, even tonight, the spark he gave on a night like tonight, and he can do that. Yep. We've seen him doing it in Europe. We've seen him doing it in the big games domestically. We've missed him since he's been out. I think it would be criminal if we didn't get that deal over the line.
So, I suppose it depends on spend. I mean, I've heard the deals signed. It's just up to Celtic to exercise the option. So they may be of the opinion maybe it's better to wait and just they've got the luxury of when they exercise it now or in the summer. But I think it'd give the squad a lift and the fans a lift if we signed them just now. You've got to factor that in as well, haven't you? If we had him permanently just now, we're able to announce that before the transfer window's out. It'd be great.
Michael Lee, Paul and Lawrence, what about the shocking tackles? Yeah, it was an evening of shocking tackles to such a degree that you were surprised, Lawrence, when you checked to see who had been booked, and only one player of the Wasps had actually been booked. Yeah, there was some dangerous tackles going in there, and I think the referee was very lenient on them. And I also think that is why McCarthy ended up in the book, because he was dealing with the situation himself, almost taking the matter into his own hands.
Well, I think the ref was... When McCarthy done it, it's a similar tackle to when it happened on Jota, but I think the ref was, I've let a few tackles go now. Yeah, but you'd let them go by Alloa players. And it was McCarthy that the ref tried to get, I suppose, a wee bit of authority back in the game. But it was like, I thought the challenge on McGregor first half was really bad. I didn't think the boy was trying to get the ball. I think he's jumped in to take the player. And we don't know how bad it is to McGregor. Hopefully he's okay, but it could be a fractured cheekbone or a fractured jaw, who knows. But I don't think there was an attempt to play the ball there. I think he's just went in to play the player. The refs, let it go, as in he's not booked him. He's going to ref, surely that's at least a booking there.
Well, absolutely. And then when you look back, in fact, I didn't even have to look back because I thought at initial glance that it was a bad tackle on Gucci, and that could easily have been a red card as well, Lawrence.
Yeah. The boys won it early and he's continued through, and Gucci's continued into him. It looks really bad when it's slowing down because he's high, he's on his ankle. And Gucci's looks to be the worst from what we could see when he's sitting on the bench, the way it was padded coming on, so it's an ice straight away. But easily could have been a red card in another game, couldn't it? But yeah, the ref deems it worthy of a yellow. I think when he makes contact, I think both feet might be off the ground by that time, the way he's fall through. So Gucci's got his leg planted. It's definitely a sore one. He looked in pain. I suppose the only bonus is Gucci's just in and we've got a bit of cover in that area of the pitch. Out of the three, you'd probably rather keep the other two fit.
Yeah, I mean, Gucci hasn't cemented himself in the team as a first pick yet, Lawrence, so I totally get that. We will be talking about the options that we're going to have should there be any injuries to the three players that went off tonight. We've heard a lot about the intensity of the training being to blame for a lot of the pools, etc. But you just can't legislate for a game like tonight where you go out and the tackles have been shocking. I agree with you there, Michael Lee, 100%. We spoke about it all the way through the game, Lawrence and I. And some of those tackles ended up, obviously, with our players getting injured. So very unhappy with that. But it's been a situation all season where we've been on the end of these tackles. Alan Morrison's running an ongoing piece on his blog about it. I've been bringing it up as well, the amount of challenges that should have seen red and didn't. They got away with it. So I think when you look at Abada, it could well have been a cautionary substitution. He at least walked off the park. Lawrence walked round to the dugout, etc. So you're thinking to yourself, let's get him rested. And you can bring on Jota and you give him minutes, so you see the benefit of that. If he does miss the game, would you be happy with Jota down the left and Forrest down the right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Jamesy Forrest, Celtic legend. So Jota, one of the star performers of the season so far, so you've got to be happy with that. But I think, Abada, if he's not in the matchday squad's a big miss, isn't it? He's got goals, he's got assists. He'll look good tonight. It was a cracking goal from him. So you definitely want to keep him fit for the rest of the season. If the ref takes some action early, maybe the players would have calmed down in their tackles. But you know what? Once Alloa get a goal back, they're putting everything in it, aren't they? And then the ref's letting a few things go. Well,
Barry McCluskey comes in to suggest via Facebook, welcome to the show, Barry. Alloa had a game plan of leaving the boot in. Niang and Salmon were at it from the kickoff. Yeah, they did. And, all the little niggles as well, though, Lawrence, that, they go unpunished a lot of the time.
Salmon, he feels Welsh. Then the elbow comes up into Welsh's face. You're going, well, that's a red card, isn't it? It looks deliberate, the elbow. And I know Sam saying, I was watching the ball to the ref. You didn't need to watch, well, you felt him, then you put your elbow up to where his face was. It's poor. Yeah, and listen, you can't blame Alloa for, they've got to level the playing field somehow, haven't they?
They do.
They've got to look to the ref to go, where's the protection here?
They've got to maximise every possible avenue that they can, and if they can't do that in terms of the standard of play, then every trick in the book, every dark art, I totally get that, and you expect it to a degree as well. But when you're looking at a game where you've gone and you've won 2-1, and it's been a poor second half, and the striker that you've been looking towards as a guy who might be back up doesn't play well, I don't see it as being a negative state of mind, as San Groper says. It's basically calling it as it is. I mean, that wasn't a great performance. You can't paint it as a brilliant, perfect performance, a polished performance. What's the positives? We won the game. We're in the next round of the tournament. I think Maeda continues to show what he will provide once he's up to full speed as well. We've spoken about the positives, but to speak about exactly what you're seeing there isn't negative. I mean, did Giakoumakis have a good game? No, he didn't. Is it great that we've had 3 injuries? No, that's not negative. That's just what happened in the game.
Listen, Giakoumakis, did he put his sail about as much as Connor Salmon did?
No, he didn't.
Who looked a better striker out of the two? That's what's worrying, It's, you really want it to happen for Giakoumakis, but he's had injuries, he's had fitness, but 90 minutes against Alloa, and I think it scales his cross that's made it. It's a nice finish, but you should be scoring that if you're a striker. But I don't think he gave their centre halves outside of that too much trouble, did he?
No, he didn't, and that was the concern. And I think that he has come with the best season of his life behind him. You hope that he can hit the ground running. And we take into account the fact that it's been stop-start with regards to his fitness and the injuries. When he's come in, he's had the disappointment of missing that penalty against Livingston. But it doesn't come down to that penalty. It comes down to the all-round performance.
Yeah, I suppose it's not just him. There's no one else kind of nailed the starting place in, that was getting a chance tonight, have it? No one else has said, right, I've made, Scales, he's not made the left back position his own after this. Gucci, for what we saw of him before the injury, I don't think he cemented a place in the starting lineup. I think Maeda's bought as a starter. I think he'd done well. So there was a lot of poor performances tonight.
See the thing though, Lawrence, right? See what you said there. Maeda bought as a starter. I get that. I also thought Gucci was. I thought that the player who was the risk, but it was a low risk due to the transfer fee. And this is going by the Japanese journalists that have been spoken to in a number of Celtic podcasts. I thought the risk was Hatate, but what he showed rather in his debut against Hibs was that he is actually vying for a jersey. I'm glad he wasn't playing tonight, because he's going to be fresh for the Hearts game. And I think when I look at the fact that Gucci might be out, because that was a nasty tackle, but he's sitting there in the dugout, and he's heavily strapped up and he's got the ice pack on. So that's not looking good for him. But he's the one guy I'm looking at and thinking, well, we do have Hatate there, because Hatate was brilliant against Hibs.
Yeah. But I mean, Gucci, if he's a starter, he started at number 6 tonight. And I know Cam pushed for the 4, and Turnbull's going to be out for a while, and Ozzy's going to be out with Australia, but would he be bought as the starting number 6, Gucci, with everything being equal, having all the players available? I don't think so. I think McGregor and Beaton should be ahead of him. But I get what you're saying. He was more of a known quantity than Hatate, but Hatate's first game, he's looked good. I think he's the boy that, playing further forward, you can see he's going to add more to the team. But I'm not sure Gucci's been... Well, if he's been bought as a starter, I don't think it's in his number 6. I'm not sure what position he's been bought as a starter for.
The thing is, I wouldn't like to judge him based on tonight's game because of the circumstances. People might say, well, that's fair and well, but you've just done that with Giakoumakis. The Giakoumakis judgment is ongoing, and it's been based on all his performances, not on just tonight.
Look, it's the runs he's making. He's showing it's his touch when the ball's dropping out the air.
Or the runs he's not making.
Aye. But it's, the ball bouncing off him, and, he's trying to control and it's running 4 yards away from it. It is, second touch is a tackle kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I know it was on AstroTurf. You could maybe make some allowances for that. The ball doesn't hold up as much, but yeah, there's quite a few poor performances. I thought Welsh lost his man.
He did.
I think the number 6 kind of get pushed up, and they get a wee bit panicked by the centre half getting pushed up. But I thought he was offside when the pass was played to number 6. Obviously Salmon's not, but I thought the number 6 was in it. I think that's kind of Welsh, and I think Ralston were a wee bit like, right, just a bit spooked with the centre half being causing a bit of chaos just being up there.
Well, yeah, that's right, because Ralston, by the time the ball hit the back of the net, Ralston's facing the other way. But Welsh was the one that, if anyone was to put a tackle, and he was best placed to win the header, and he was nowhere near it, unfortunately. And I know you've got to cut it out at source as well, so you've got to look at that from a defensive perspective. But when the ball comes in, Welsh has got to do better. Yeah,
definitely. And I thought, I think a big mistake there. But then Starfelt, it's when he pushed Salmon in the halfway line. It's 2-1. You're going, they're not scoring from there. Just even if he gets a knock on. He just gave them an opportunity to pump the ball in the box, didn't he?
You gave them a wee bit of hope. That's the problem. Now, Joe Porter, I'm happy. By the way, I didn't think at any point, I didn't think at any point we weren't going to win that game. It was a poor second half. Joe Porter, I'm happy Hatate didn't start keeping for the league games. Yeah, got to agree with you there, Joe. And another Joe, this time it's Joe Fulham. Cameron Carter-Vickers needs to be signed up now. Absolutely. The 2 loanees do. We've suffered in the past from a lot of loanees coming in, and they didn't really, for me, make an impression at Celtic. This time round, we brought 2 in, and both of them have been absolutely superb and very important for the side going forward in the second half of the season. David in Glasgow, PJ, it's not criminal if things don't work out. We all know transfers need all parties to be in agreement. Jota, I suspect, will want to keep his options open. RE Benfica's management changes. Patience. Yeah, there is that. I mean, even though we've taken Jota to our hearts, and he seems to have bought into the club, and his performances have been nothing short of outstanding overall. Lawrence, there is a lot of different aspects to this. It's not just about that he's fallen in love with the club and he wants to be here. And obviously we've got the first option to buy him, but it all comes down to the player at the end of the day, doesn't it?
Depending on what's been pre-agreed with the player as well, doesn't it? We don't know the ins and outs of the deal. That part could have already been pre-agreed as part of this contract. We don't know, do we? That's the thing. We don't know how it's structured. But would Ange want him to even stay, even if we had to? Because I don't think he's the kind of guy that would want players at the club that didn't want to be there. But yeah, I think we should be moving everything out of the two loanies. I would sign him first before Cameron Carter-Vickers.
Michael Hennigan, Giakoumakis will score goals have given the service. I think he did get some service tonight. Now, listen, I want to finish it off on a positive. The positive is we're still on track for a quadruple this season, Lawrence. So we're in the next round of the Scottish Cup. We're playing Wraith Rovers. We'll obviously cover that game as well. But thanks, everybody, for getting involved. It's been a decent night all round when you look at the fact that we've come into it. It could be a banana skin. We've overcome it. Not a great performance in the second half, but the 3 injuries are the biggest concern. So we'll see. Hopefully in the next couple of days we'll hear that everybody's okay and they'll be playing against Hearts. But if not, we're just going to have to deal with that, and we've got a much better squad to deal with it now. Lawrence, one final question for you. If Callum McGregor doesn't make it, have you seen enough from James McCarthy that he would get a start?
I think probably Beaton, out his recent, would start in front of McCarthy as a defensive midfielder. I just think, he was on a bit of a run of form, Beaton. So he's got more minutes in his legs, but I'd be comfortable with either of them playing at number 6. I think they're a decent level of backup for Callum at number 6. Or if we wanted to play Callum further forward, which we did tonight, we started going further forward, at least we've got options at 6. It's probably the position we've got the most options at.
Yeah, it is, and I'll be interested to see who is picked, because Beaton looked pretty good when he came on as well. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, remember to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button and the notifications button for daily content. 8 o'clock tonight, live session with Mark McLean from Greenock. So get on that on the channel. All that's left for me to say, Lawrence Connolly, again, thank you for joining me in the studio and on A Celtic State of Mind.